Education for PACE, Partners in Achieving Change Excellence, and I'll be giving this webinar today. And welcome, and we are going to get started. So welcome to our webinar. It's one of a series of free webinars that we're offering. There was one a couple weeks back on brainstorming, brainwriting. If you missed that one, maybe we'll have it again later at a later date sometime this year. We will see if there's enough interest. This one is kind of the next in the series, which would be root cause analysis and fishbone diagrams. Obviously, we don't have time to go into great detail, but we will do what we can, and then you can always send us some questions or try and join us for one of our lean training courses, which would be great. Well, I'm from Timmons, and like I say, Dennis Parisi is my name. And we're going to be talking today about root cause analysis and fishbone diagrams. What's our mission? Deliver practical solutions to as many organizations as possible. And you'll see by the list coming up that we've done a lot with a lot of organizations, and we've been very successful. As you can see, we've worked really heavily with the government sectors, Canadian Mental Health, Children's Community Networks, even with the Greater Sudbury. We've trained quite a few of their people. Northeastern Special Geriatric Center, et cetera. And some of the companies we've worked for, by no means all of the companies. We've done some really good work with Atlas Copco in North Bay, Dumas and Timmons, the TPS group. In fact, they're joining us shortly for a Greenbelt training course. We've worked with some of the mining companies up here, presently working with Barrick. Looks like we might be doing some, we're looking at with other companies as well. So we've done a lot. Now, question I'd like to ask you, and if you go down to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a thing called polls. And if you open that up, you'll notice I'm going to be asking a question. And it is, what is your experience with lean? What do you think lean is? Anyway, you'll have some questions for you to answer. And we're going to do a poll of our audience and see what everyone, and that gives me it gives me a better idea of how deep I can go or not with the session. So I'm going to launch the poll, and we'll give you guys, everyone 2 minutes to answer the questions, and then we'll have a look and see what the answers are like. So the poll has been launched, and you'll see it on your screen now. So what is your experience with lean? None, but excited to learn more. I am certified and participate in my workplace. I'm certified, but do not participate in my workplace. I am currently taking a certification course. If you start filling that in, we will have a look. It's great. Almost 75% people have already voted in. As soon as it gets to 100, I'll close the poll and we'll share the results. I've been working with lean since 2008 with my former company and now with PACE. And I've been with PACE since 2014. And lean is such a great way to help companies and organizations to be more efficient and better. So all the votes are in. I'm going to close the poll and we'll share the results with everyone. And here we go. So our results show that 71% of you have had no experience with lean at all. 13% of you have some or are certified. And some are actually taking courses, which is great. Well, good. Okay, so for those who have, because most of you have not had much experience with lean, I'm just going to give a quick overview of what lean is all about. And then we'll get back and then we'll work on the our topic of the day. Thank you for your answers. So what is lean? Well, anywhere you work, whether you're working in the private sector, at a mine, and anywhere, it doesn't matter where you're working. You always have to do things kind of in a step-by-step. And there are steps or procedures that you follow, just like you see in this diagram, every day. The thing with lean is what we want to do is identify in your processes, and this is what we call a process, where there may be waste. And the whole thing behind lean is to eliminate waste. We want to get rid of any waste we can find, even the smallest little thing, and you may find big ones. The idea is to take something that might take 6 or more steps, or whatever many steps you have in your procedures, and see if we can eliminate some of those unnecessary steps, unnecessary approvals that might be happening just because, you know what, we've been doing it that way as long as I can be here, as long as I can remember. And you'll be surprised, you wouldn't be surprised how many times we hear that, well, it's just the way we do things. Well, you know, it's always great to think that way, but to work on the way we've done things forever. But you know what? There's probably a better way. So if we can take our existing process and trim it down by removing waste, we can actually extract more value from the workplace and actually give our customers better service, because we all have customers. Doesn't matter what you're doing, somebody is receiving a product from you, no matter what that product might be. So whether we're providing services, human services, or an actual part of some kind, it doesn't matter. We all have customers, even internal customers within our organization, and we'd like to make those processes easier to follow and more efficient. So we can do more with the same amount of resources. And this also helps us look at when we have our budget issues and we're saying, oh, we got to eliminate stuff out of the budget. You know what? If we find the waste in our systems first, it makes that a lot easier. And you know what? You may not have to get rid of people anymore just because you become more efficient. And that is what we're striving for. So what we've seen in the training and the helping companies that we have in the human service sector, we've seen up to 5% return on investment. It could be more, but in the mining manufacturing industry sector, we've actually seen up as high as 20% return on your investment. And your investment means is what you put in, the time and effort you put into becoming lean. So just so you know, on top of these free webinars, we do provide lean green belt training. And our next session is actually coming up in Sudbury on March 19th and 20th, 2018. I'm not sure, I think we still have some room. And our next one in Sudbury is Lean Green Belt is on May 9th and 10th of this year. I'll be at both of those. And you can register at yourpace.ca/events. We look forward to having you there. Believe me, the training is terrific. We help you along. It's really fun training. It's a couple of days and really worth your while, I think, if you wanted to get more into lean. There's a lot to learn. And we do some really great, we work with a live simulation. So you're actually working on a project while you're taking the course. It's a lot of fun. We use all kinds of tools. We show you all kinds of tools and we actually use them. So we'll show you all kinds of things that you can do to make yourself, help your organization become lean. So now on to the main subject of today's webinar. We are going to start talking about, today is an introduction to root cause analysis. Just a quick intro so you know what a root cause is. Some of the tools, one being the 5 why and the other being a fishbone diagram. If you're not sure what those are, that's okay. We'll be getting to those shortly and you'll see what I mean. But first you need to understand what is a root cause and what is root cause analysis. So what is root cause? A lot of people call it the RCA, root cause analysis. And it's a practice that tries to solve problems by attempting to identify the correct root cause. And what is a root cause? Well, the root cause is not the symptom that you feel. So if you're feeling that you're not getting your product out on time and people are complaining, well, that's the symptom, is the complaints. And what you want to avoid doing, and what we try not to do, because if you just treat the symptom of people complaining, that's not going to fix the root cause or the real problem you have. The root cause is deeper into the process as to what's causing your process to fail your customer. So we're going to use the 5Y and the Fishbone diagram to help us get down to the real root cause. If we correct the real root cause, then chances are you won't get a reoccurrence of the problem or symptoms. So the idea is we tend to always react to the symptoms. That is our nature. As soon as we get a symptom to a problem is what we do. We look at fast, we throw money at it, and it just keeps happening and happening and happening over and over again. What we want to do is get deeper into the process, find out what's really causing our problems and these symptoms to occur, and fixing that root cause. If you fix that root cause, that symptom will stop happening, and that's what we're really after. So you can see root cause analysis is not just one step. It's not just a single sharply defined methodology. There are many different tools. Two of them we're going to show you today are Fishbones and the 5Y. If you look at that quickly on the diagram on the left, the big thing we have to do is make sure we define the problem properly, understand what that is, identify the root cause, and then we can get into corrective actions, monitoring and identifying any other problem we may have. And this circle, would you notice, it's a circle. That's because lean is not a one-time thing. Lean, if you're a lean organization, you're doing this all the time and it becomes seamless. So to be effective, must perform systematically. So you need to get a team together, and it's always best if you have a team. Get them together, do some brainstorming, but the main thing is defining the problem properly. Once you've defined the problem, then you can start digging down and getting to the root cause. And there may be more than one root cause to a particular problem. So don't be surprised if you find more than one root cause. And that's okay. Fix one, get it working, and then you can tackle the next one. How often have you actually, so we're going to do another quick poll, and just so make sure you understand what a root cause is, but how often do you think you've actually found the root cause of a problem? So I'm going to open up another poll, and I'd like you people to fill it in. I'm going to be asking the poll, and here we go. It's how often have you found the root cause of a problem? 100% of the time? More than 50%? Less than 50%? Or you don't think you've ever really found the root cause? You can go ahead and answer that. Interesting. The results of this poll will be really, really good. You're about 88%. We can get everybody to answer in the next 30 seconds. It'd be great. For who's not sure, just look on the right-hand side under polls, and you'll see the poll, and it should come up on your screen. So how often have you actually found the root cause of a problem? 100% of the time? More than 50%? Less than 50%? Or you've never actually gotten down to the root cause? Okay, 10 seconds. I'm going to close the poll. Everyone can get their answers in. We're at 92%, so there's a few of you who haven't answered yet. All right, we're going to close the poll here. Most of you have answered. And let's see what the results are like. Here they go. So we've showing that obviously, no, I didn't think anybody would have caught the root problem, the root cause of a problem 100% of the time. Only 4 of you said never. That's good to hear. But I notice half of you have said you found the root cause more than 50% of the time, but a full half of you have said you haven't found it's less than 50% of the time. And that's typical of what we see. So I'm just going to turn that on, hide that, and we'll go to the next set of slides. So it's interesting that if you noticed, finding the root cause is not as easy as we might think. And it's usually never the first thing we come up with when we're trying to solve the symptoms to a problem, because we tend to look at it quite the wrong way. So root cause analysis through the 5 why, it's based on something that was created by a fellow named Taishi Ono, who's the architect of the Toyota production system. I don't know if you've ever heard of TPS. That's based on Toyota's scientific approach by repeating the word why 5 times. The nature of a problem as well as its solution become clearer. Now, we'll get into that a little bit more. What are the factors that directly result in the effect? So that's what we're looking for. What really are the factors that are causing the effect we're looking for? And the main thing to remember is a problem well stated is a problem half solved. So if you can make sure you come up with a really good problem statement, then you can ask why. And it could take 5 times. It may take 3 times, might take as many as 7 times. It depends on the problem we're having. So here's just a quick example here. There's a bolt that's too short installed in a motor. Well, why is there? And this is something we don't do enough of, is ask that question, why? Well, why is the bolt too short? What happened? Well, the operator made an error. Okay, well, is that the root cause? No, maybe not. Why did the operator make an error? Well, on other models, they use short bolts. Oh, okay. But is that really the root cause? Well, why? Ask it again. Why are the models different? Well, different designers adopted different solutions. So as you often see, you may have the same type of equipment, but there's a version 1, 2, and 3, and they changed things on each one, and nothing is standardized. Well, why did designers adopt different solutions? Well, there's no standardization on high volume articles when designing. So you go back and you see we're digging back into not just the building of the unit, but how the unit was designed. You can ask why again, and we find out it is considered secondary in the design process. So standardization was never a priority or never made a priority. So the designers obviously had free reign to design the way they felt. And if it meant changing parts here and there, that was okay. Another example of using a standard design for something is in a mine, they have fueling stations for equipment underground. Well, why wouldn't you make every single fueling station identical? In fact, where I used to work, we actually did that. And it alleviated a lot of problems we had with messy areas and things not, being messed all over the place. And the only reason we found that is we asked the question, well, why are the fueling stations messy and unkept? We eventually got down to, well, there was no standards, and we came up with better standards. And we made it standard across the board, so they all were the same. This can be done anywhere. So go to the root cause to find the fundamental cause. Ask yourself the question until you find the root cause. Now, is this really the root cause? We can always ask why again, and it might take us somewhere else. But when you feel you've gotten down far enough and deep enough, then it's time to analyze that and see if that truly is the root cause. Another way to help you do that, you can use a YYY diagram. This is one I found. And basically you state what your problem is in the first box and you ask why. And you can see you can have several different reasons, and then you can ask why until you get down to a potential root cause. I'll give you a better example here. We call this a fault tree analysis using the 5 whys. So you get with we have dissatisfied website customers, and then you ask, why do we have dissatisfied customers? And one of the reasons could be late completion of our websites, or lacking functionality, or simple web page errors. And you can ask why and dig down and dig down and dig down. And as you dig down, you'll notice that a couple of things came up twice. Too many projects came up twice. Well, you know what? That's a good indication that, that might be a thing to look at. Maybe we're as a management team, we're handing out to our developers too many projects at one time. Maybe we should hold that back and only hand out 1 or 2 at a time instead. Because theoretically, you can only work on so much at a time and be actually effective. And that's using the fault tree analysis. And this is a really good way of doing your 5 why. Again, it's very important you come up with a really good and well-defined problem statement. And you can use that 5 why in other tools, like the Fishbone, which we are going to go to next. So you can use it individually, but we really like if you could use it when you're doing a Fishbone, and that's what you see on the left-hand side. But I won't get into it right now. We're going to get into it in a moment. And that is the basis of 5 why, to help you get down to that root cause. So, in summary, if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers. Now, a question asked in the right way often points to its own answer. That's what we're looking for. Asking questions is the ABC of diagnostics. Only the inquiring mind solves the problem. So we have to ask why and how come and why is this happening? And only then can we get down and find the root cause so that it can be fixed. And if you have any questions, don't be shy. You can use that type your question section on the right-hand side. We always look forward to questions. We're going to get into a thing called the Fishbone Diagram next. Now, a Fishbone Diagram is a neat tool. It's a visual tool. And me being your average human, I like things that are visual. And hence, I really like using a Fishbone diagram. Now, if you were at our last webinar about brainstorming and brainwriting, when you do a brainstorming session and you get a lot of information from your team, the hardest part is organizing that information afterwards. Well, guess what? Fishbone is the easiest way of taking that information, putting it into a visual format that makes it a whole lot easier to understand and to dig down again to find your root causes. So it's called many things, cause and effect, Ishikawa, but it's a visual tool to organize and graphically display in increasing detail all of the problems. Hang on there. There's some questions. After a person takes the green belt training, do they certify? Yes. Not right after. There's a quick question here about if you take the green belt training, do you get certified right away? Not right away. You have to do a project, and we have a way. You'll see we have a score sheet that we follow, and we help you get to your green belt certification. We'll keep that type of questions answers for you later on. Now, getting back to the Fishbone diagram. Why use this diagram? Well, it helps you focus the team on the contents of the problem. It creates a snapshot of everybody's collective knowledge is what you want. It helps get consensus on what the causes of the problems really are. It gets you to build support amongst your team, so you have a team that's all headed in the same direction, which is very important. And it focuses on the causes and not the symptoms, because we tend to always try and solve the symptoms when we should be really looking deeper at the causes. If we fix the cause, the symptoms disappear. And that's the beauty with that. So here is your typical fishbone diagram layout. Again, why we call it a fishbone? It looks like a fish that you've just had for breakfast or supper, and you've taken all the flesh off and all you're left with the bones. And as you can see, at the very head of the fish is the effect, the problem, or the defect. So you would state your problem very clearly there. Okay. And then you can use the results now from your brainwriting or brainstorming session that you had earlier, and you can fill in all the causes to the problem that you came up with your team. And you can visually put it in. And if you notice on the left-hand side, it says root cause, sub-cause, and then main category. Okay, well, the way you look at these fishbone diagrams is you're going to come up, we're going to state some main categories, and I'll show you a list of the typical ones we use in a moment. And then you're going to add in for each category some of those answers you got from your brainwrite, which could be the causes for something. And then once we've filled all of the main causes in, then you're going to start asking why. Now, you may already have some of those answers because that was given to you during the brainstorm, and you would fill in as a sub cause. And then you ask why to that sub cause, and you get down to the root causes. Now, you're going to be asking why several times, and you see you can get a lot of lines in there, but it's quite visual and it reads like a story, so that the root cause causes the sub cause, which causes the cause, which eventually causes your main problem. That's kind of how you read these things. So how we like to organize the information to help make it simpler to look at is to, on these main categories, we like to state some main categories, like if this is a service industry side of things, policies, procedures, people, plant, measurements, environment, or other categories that will help you think clearly. Anything can go in there. It's what you feel is required. On the product manufacturing side, it's machines, materials, measurements, methods, man or woman, which is the same as people, and environment. So those headers go into the main categories. And then you take the information you got from your brainstorm session or your brainwrite session, whichever one you used, or just when you've gathered information from your team, and you would fill it in and put it into the actual category it belongs, whether it be machine. So maybe you have a manufacturing issue where you're not getting the right type of parts. Well, maybe it's a materials issue. Is it a training issue? That would go under, that could go under a whole lot of things. We'll see that in a minute. So here's typically what it would look like. It doesn't have to be pretty, but it helps if it is well organized. So you see we have measurements, materials, personnel. So what are the things that you would put under each? Well, materials, obviously, what type of materials you used. That could be the types of paper, even the types of pens you're using if the pens become an issue. So here, see here, things like stainless steel, carbon steel. Environment. Oh, that's the environment you're working in. Is it cluttered? Is it hot? Is it humid? Is it too cold? That would go under environment. Measurements. Are you measuring enough or maybe not enough? Are your measurements, are your tolerances to your measurements too tight or maybe they're too loose? The machines you use, are you using the right kind of pen? Should you be using a marker? Are you using the right mouse? Maybe the mouse you have is causing carpal tunnel syndrome. Maybe you need to go to a different kind of mouse. Anything that you think of would go under that. So that's part of the machine world. And on the personal side, it's your hours, your shifts, any training, how many operators you have or whatever. All right. So that is how you start your fishbone. Take your main categories, pick the ones you want. Could be either the lean service side, like policies. It could be a mix of both. It's whatever you feel works best for the situation you're in and for the problem you're trying to solve. But you should have, at minimum, 4 or 5 of these. So again, we want to define the statement, the problem statement. Always, probably the most important step that we don't spend enough time on is a good problem statement. Have a team brainstorm possible causes for that, and then associate it to the right categories. And during the review, okay, so after you've started putting these in and you put this in front of your team, you start reviewing now. You can start asking, well, why is training an issue? Or why are the shifts an issue? Oh, maybe because we can't, or people are not used to working night shifts, or night shifts are causing issues because, I don't know, maybe the lighting in the building isn't good enough. Who knows? Maybe the grade of why stainless steel, and maybe why are we having problems with the stainless steel? Is it because we're not getting a high enough quality stainless steel, or that we're using the wrong grade of stainless steel because there's like 5 different types of stainless steel? Any analyzed results? Do any causes repeat? This is something that's really important to look for, and I'll show you in another diagram later. So a lot of times what happens, we start asking questions on these fishbone diagram, and we'll start finding the same answers coming up a lot of times. And a common root cause I've seen often is something called lack of training. And that means, well, maybe we need to refocus our energy and do proper training. And that was definitely the case for one of the projects I worked on, why we were getting so many defects in our process. And part of it was actually the largest problem we found was a lack of training. So we revised all our training plans, rewrote all the procedures, and we retrained everybody on it. And lo and behold, 90% of the issues we were having suddenly disappeared. So we went after the root and not the symptom. And determine which causes need verification. Now, this is very important, verification with data. Be careful not to overlook causes that should be reviewed with data, because sometimes you got to remember that this is subjective at this point. This is people's opinions and how they feel. We haven't really checked with data yet. So once we find the root causes, what we think are the root causes, it's a really good idea to check to see if it truly is by going out there and getting some good data about it. So, people are saying we're not getting trained, but if you look at the training records and it lists, well, everybody's getting trained. Well, maybe it's not getting the training per se, but maybe it's the type of training we're getting, or what's in the training, or maybe there's something about the training that's not being done right. Only once you've dug a little deeper do you really know for sure. So if you've got many, if you come up with a lot of root cause, you think you got a lot of them, well, you know what? The ones that come up the most often, maybe those are the ones we should look at first. So you prioritize your list from the ones that come up the most often down to the least often, and you slowly work through it. But a really important thing we learn about lean is we only tackle one of those at a time. So possible templates that you can use, and here's a really nice one. It's created on Visio, and in fact, if you have Visio on your computers, this one might actually be part of the templates that are in there. It's easy to make, and what you can do is you can do this on Visio or some other drawing program that you may have. And you notice those squares look awful familiar. Well, yeah, those are sticky notes. It's just you would project this up on a whiteboard with from your computer with a projector. And we have actually this Visio template. So if you need one and you take our course, you get to have it. You state your problem, and you just use sticky notes. You can use different colors, and you would fill it in. Take a picture of it after the meeting, and you've got your fishbone. And a nice thing about why do you think we want you to use sticky notes? Because if you put it in the wrong place the first time around, you can move it. It makes it easy and less messy this way. So that's just one of the possible templates. And here is a typical fishbone, what it actually would look like. Yeah, it looks kind of messy, but it really isn't if you really look at it very carefully. The problem was a premature midship failure that's in the midship section of a vehicle. And they've asked some questions and they've done some brainstorming, and you can see they've focused on environment, planning, measurements, procedures, materials, and equipment for this particular one. They could have had others, but they chose these. And if you see under equipment, the main, you look at one of the causes here, and it's front and rear section mismatch. Why is there a mismatch? And you notice in blue it says improper alignment. Well, why is there improper alignment? Well, the premature bearing failed. So the bearing failed prematurely. And if you look at this whole diagram, you'll notice that the bearings looks like to be a major issue, because you'll notice it comes up a lot. So maybe they're using the wrong bearing, or maybe it's not lubed properly. You would dig deeper now and to find what's causing the premature bearing failures. You also see there's another one called a premature pin failure. How often does that come up? I only see it maybe once. Requires more manpower under planning. You'll see it requires more manpower to repair. Well, maybe we don't have the right number of people working on it. Anyway, that is what your typical fishbone looks like. And they can be larger, they can be a lot more simple. It just depends on how deep you go. So you would first fill in the causes that you get from your brainstorm session. Get your team in a room, have a look at it, and then you can start asking that really wonderful question, why? And start filling in the subs and the smaller branches. And you would start reading premature, and here's a good way, this is how you read it. You read it from, in this case, red, blue, black. So premature bearing failure is causing improper alignment, which is causing the front rear section mismatch, which is causing our midship failure. And that's how it's like a story that you can read back to the problem. If you look at the left-hand side under environment, you'll see that bearing damage causes increased bushing wear, which causes dust contamination, which causes premature midship failures. So that's how you read them. That's how you do them. And you'll notice you'll get a bunch of them that come up more than once, and you may end up with more than one. So you may end up with actually more than one root cause. That's okay. Start with the one that comes up the most. See if you can fix that one. Then you tackle the next one. Chances are they're interrelated. So you fix one of these and a lot of other things will disappear. Because if you fix the root cause, it tends to have tentacles and it tends to fix a lot of other problems. And that basically is what we have for you today. If you have any questions, you can ask them on the right-hand side, and I'll do my best to answer them today. If not, you can email us and we'll come up with some, we'll send you some answers. My suggestion is come to our course, take our Greenbelt training, and you'll get to actually do a fishbone and use the 5 whys and do a brainstorm, brainwrite to fill one of these in. And you'll really get a really good feel for how this works. So thank you for your time. Just a few more things to let you know about the company. We are certified to work with the Canada-Ontario Job Grant, so we can help you get this $10,000 per employee for training costs through Employment Ontario government and the Government of Canada. We also help government and nonprofits with some funding. So we'll also help nonprofits, and we tend to do this. We'll actually bring in some nonprofits and do some training with them at a lower cost to them. And it's very important that you know that we are not finished with this webinar. There's more coming. The next one will be my buddy, Dan Draper, and it's you have data, what now? So when we say you have to analyze the data, it's a good thing to know. You need to be able to analyze, and Dan will take you through that. And that's on Thursday, April 12th at 1:30 in the afternoon. So if you can join us for that one, would be really great. Again, I'm Dennis Parisi, Director of Education. There's our phone number at PACE, my email, and our website. I'll leave that up for a bit. And thank you for coming. Again, if you have any quick questions, you can send them to me via email, or you can ask them right now if you've got something you'd like to do right away. Again, Fishbone Diagrams and 5Y, getting to the root cause, is an amazing approach. It works really, really well, and it'll help get rid of a lot of symptoms you feel that are unpleasant. All right. Thank you for coming, and I'll be closing the webinar. Thank you for being with us, and have a good day.